Good evening, folks. My name is Jack Moynihan. I'm from the Office of Alumni Relations in the Northeastern Fund. How's everyone doing tonight? That's great. Thanks so much for coming out tonight to Insights. Just a show of hands, how many folks have been back to an Insights at our Alumni Center on campus? Fantastic. For those of you whose hands are not up, you have got to get back to campus and see the great facility that's the Alumni Center. Is everyone's cell phone off? The Alumni Center, folks, just so you know, opened up a couple of years ago. And since its opening, over 70,000 folks have come through the doors. So there's a lot going on. I just direct everybody to our website. Make sure that you visit our website. Come on back for some events on campus. For those of you who may be interested this weekend, big weekend back on campus, Homecoming 2009. And there's a lot going on with the big event is Fan Fest, Saturday night. We have a huge tent at Matthews Arena. We're going to bring in the live music and all kinds of activities for kids. And then the hockey game is against the University of Maine Black Bears at 7 o'clock. So if anyone needs tickets, it's sold out. But because you came tonight, if you need tickets, let me know before you leave. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into our guest speaker, there is somebody else that is very, very special that I want to make sure that I acknowledge. Fresh off a lecture last night in Columbia, and she just got off the Acela, the former First Lady of the Commonwealth and a great friend of Northeastern, Kitty Dukakis. So I'm going to veer off a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, because normally for these things we do our homework and we get the speaking points. And this one is a little bit more personal for me. Now, we all know about our speaker tonight and the illustrious career he has had in politics. Former state legislator, 3-time governor, Democratic nominee for president. But I'm going to go a little bit different. And I'm going to talk briefly about what Mike Dukakis has meant to Jack Moynihan. Because you see, I'm a Husky. At the end of the day, like all of you, I'm a Husky. And my wife is a Husky. And I went to Suffolk undergrad, and then I got my head on straight, and I decided I was going to go back and go to grad school at Northeastern. Well, it wasn't until I was ready to go to school and grad school and I understood the importance of it. And I think the first or the second class I ever had was with Professor Dukakis. And as I said tonight to Kitty while we were having dinner before the event, I said he was one of 2 people, Bruce Wallen being the other, that had a profound effect on me. And I don't know how many of you know, the toughest class to get into at Northeastern University is Mike Dukakis' class. And why is that? Very simple. He challenges you. You better be prepared because he's going to put it on you every night. But you walk out of there with an understanding that you're in a special situation. It's like no other class that I've ever had. And still to this day, and he said it tonight to me the same thing, still to this day, he says, Jack, Erin was the star. You were along for the ride, and he's probably right. So I would just say to all of you tonight that in every university, we have our treasures. And every university has their treasures. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Northeastern's treasure to all of you, Governor Mike Dukakis.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. The next time I run for the presidency, Jack Moynihan is going to be my campaign manager. Anyway, but it was a great joy, and it is a great joy, folks, not only to teach at Northeastern, but to have students like Jack, and I guess at that time, you guys weren't married, were you? No. You were keeping company, however. Yes. Both of them, who I had in one of the courses I teach in the MPA program, and it was great to have them, and it's great that we have him as our Vice President for Alumni Affairs, whose portfolio seems to be expanding daily. In any event, it's great to be here with Kitty, who, as Jack said, spoke at Columbia Medical School yesterday and just got off one of my favorite trains. So if she begins fading a little bit, you'll understand. In any event, you know, when I was governor, Jack Kennedy used to say that with politicians, after the first 15 minutes, it was all downhill. And Kitty believes in the 15-minute rule. So if she was ever at a speech that I made, she would sit in the front row, and at the 15-minute mark, Jack, she'd give me the cut sign. Anyway, she may do that tonight unless she decides to take a nap. But it's great to be with you, and also with the mayor of the North End, who was with us tonight. I mean, we've got a number of distinguished personages here. And a great Northeastern person. But I've been teaching now at your alma mater for 18 years, if you can believe it. And I love public service, and I love public service, and these days I'm a missionary for public service, and one of the great things about Northeastern, as all of you know, is the co-op program and the opportunity it gives somebody like me to try to open up doors to my students, to develop co-ops for them and to give them an opportunity to get into public life at an early time. I always was a fan of co-op, but I'll tell you, since I've been there, I'm passionate about it, and for the life of me, folks, I don't understand why other universities don't see this. Yeah, kids at other universities do internships. I suppose I should confess that while I teach a lot at Northeastern, in late December, Kitty and I leave you all and go out to UCLA, where I teach during January, February, and March. It's a terrible burden. Somebody's got to do it. But I want you to know I come right back and I start teaching again. So I'm kind of a year-round guy. And I love my UCLA students, too. And I'm pushing them all the time to do internships. But it's not like co-op. It's just not like co-op. And I will tell you, we have Northeastern students today, thanks to co-op, all over the State House, all over Capitol Hill in Washington. I'll tell you one or two stories about some of these kids. And it's all because of co-op. A few years ago, I had a young woman actually from Chicago. She was a rower, Jack. She was on the rowing team. And she took my public policy and administration course and obviously had an instinct for this stuff. I mean, she was bright, not brilliant, bright, but had an instinct for this stuff. And she wanted to go to law school. Nothing against those of us who've gone to law school and been lawyers, though I do spend a lot of my time trying to make sure that my students who think they want to go to law school really want to practice law professionally. In any event, I called her in and I said, now look, Christina, you want to go? She had already done 2 co-ops with Boston law firms. I said, want to go to law school? Fine, I'm not going to try to discourage you. But I said, do yourself a favor and apply for the Washington Co-op. We have about a half a dozen students that the university pays, because internships on Capitol Hill don't pay. Do yourself a favor and apply for the Washington Co-op. Please, whatever you do, if you practice law, you'll never regret spending 6 months on Capitol Hill. And if you get accepted, come on back and let's talk about who you want to work for. She was accepted, came back, and I said, okay, who do you want to work for? Now, she was from Chicago. She said, this is in 2006. She said, well, I want to work for either Durbin or Obama, who were the 2 United States senators. I said, look, Obama's a great guy. At that time, there was none of us knew he was going to run for the presidency. But he's probably got 1,000 kids trying to get in to intern for him every day. Durbin, if the Democrats win in the fall, will be the number 2 guy in the Senate. How about Durbin? She said, yeah, I'll work for Durbin. So I called Durbin's office and worked it out. Down she went to work for Dick Durbin, who became the number 2 guy in the United States Senate. And had a very good time. Following winter, we were back out at UCLA. I got a call from Christina. You won't believe what happened. I just got a call from Senator Durbin. Wants me to come to work for him, full time. I said, what about law school? She said, well, I'm going to take the LSATs, but I said, you're going to do it? She said, yeah, I think I want to do it. I said, when does he want you? After graduation? She said, no, he wants me next week. But I got enough credits, I'm doing independent study and so on and so forth. Christina Mulca has now been a member of Dick Durbin's staff for the past 2.5 years. She is now a senior staff person. She took a leave of absence to handle the press for the Obama primary campaign in Colorado. She's now back there. In fact, when we met Senator Durbin at the Kennedy funeral, the first thing he said was, "This is Christina." This kid was at Northeastern 3 years ago. She's now senior staff to the #2 guy in the United States Senate. It was all about co-op, folks. And I love teaching at Northeastern, and I especially love teaching at Northeastern because the kids that I'm teaching are anchored in reality. And thanks to co-op, have an opportunity to have 2 or 3 or 4 professional experiences in the course of their undergraduate career. And these are life-transforming experiences for these kids, folks. You know, one of the problems with public service these days is that we really don't get a very good sense from the media as to what it is, what it's like. You know, we rarely read about the good things. We always read about who's been indicted. And I don't fault the press for doing that. But if you watch or read or listen to the American media, you have no sense of what public service is all about. What's unique about co-op is that these folks have an opportunity to work in public service with public servants. And what they discover is that for the most part, these are very good people who work very hard, who are very committed, and are really inspiring in many ways. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing more and more of our Northeastern students going into public service, becoming very good at public service, and really doing great work at every single level of government in this country. And it's one of the reasons why these 18 years have been great years for me, for us, and I hope, at least to some extent, for my students. And I will tell you, folks, they inspire me. They really do. Somebody said to me the other day, when are you going to retire? I said, well, when they carry me out. But, I've been on Social Security for 11 years now. But for one thing, it keeps your brain exercised. And for another thing, these young people really do inspire me. They really do. And so I've had a wonderful time there, and had an opportunity not only to have people like Jack in the classroom, but to work with him. And Kitty and I are just delighted to be with you and to have an opportunity to talk about one of my favorite subjects. Now, please bear in mind that I don't know anything more about American politics than you do. I mean, if I knew a lot more than I knew in 1988 about national politics, I'd be here in another capacity. So don't assume that I have some kind of revealed wisdom. On the other hand, Jack asked me to talk a little bit about the 2008 campaign and perhaps its implications for the future of American politics. As some of you know, I started in politics about as low on the totem pole as you can possibly get. I ran for and was elected to the town meeting in the town of Brookline while I was still in law school. And what I basically did was go to a printer, print up some cards with my picture and a little background on it, and I went out and rang every single doorbell in what we then called Precinct 12 in South Brookline and stood in front of the polling place all day long. I got elected. And I didn't find many other candidates for town meeting doing that, which is one of the reasons, I guess, why I got elected. And 3 years later, when we had a vacancy for the legislature, I went out and I rang every single doorbell in the town, with one exception, the estates section, where there weren't many Democrats. And the distances between houses were very long. But I also had a precinct captain in every single one of the 12 precincts who recruited 25 or 30 volunteers in each precinct to follow up on what I was doing, phone calls, dear friend cards, door knocking themselves. And I got elected. And when I was elected governor in 1974, if you can believe this, I spent a total of $25,000 total on media in the primary campaign, and I defeated the incumbent Attorney General by 16 percentage points. And it wasn't because I was a household name. This was one of the last of the guerrilla campaigns. What do I mean? Door knockers. Taking that model of precinct-based grassroots organizing and transforming it into a statewide campaign. And I got elected. Unfortunately, in 1978, the polls said that I was 40 points ahead of Ed King with about 5 weeks to go. And I simply could not get my folks to get serious about doing what they had done for me 4 years early. Now, I had been governor for 4 years, kind of rocky 4 years, although by the time we arrived in 1978, you know, the blizzard and all that kind of stuff, of course, my friend Bulger said that the reason I lost the primary was because I had forced husbands and wives to stay in the house together for a week. And they took it out on me in September. I'm not sure that was the case. That was also the year, by the way, sports fans, when the Red Sox were 14 games ahead at the All-Star break, remember? Yes. And Bucky Dent broke our hearts during that playoff. So Dukakis and the Red Sox went down the drain together. And maybe it was the same reason. You know, 40 points ahead. How can we lose? And so in 1982, when King and I went back at it again, believe me, every single precinct in this state was organized. And we went back to doing what, in fact, had got me elected in the first place. And as you know, I was elected and re-elected in 86. And then, for reasons I can't explain to you, maybe I can, although we did a lot of grassroots organizing in the primary in 1988, I spent too much time listening to people who I thought knew more about getting elected president than I did, who said, hey, it's all money and media. I mean, this, you know, this grassroots stuff, you're running for city council, that's okay, but, you know, this is the presidency. It's all money and media. Well, shame on me, because it's not all money and media. As we discovered, really for the first time in 2008, I tried to get my former lieutenant governor and our United States Senator John Kerry to get serious about grassroots organizing in 2004. If he had done it, he'd have been elected president of the United States. He'd probably be president today. Couldn't get him to do it. Couldn't get him to do it. Couldn't get the people around him to do it. It's all money and media. Well, we finally got somebody running for the presidency who, at the outset, while there was a lot of talk in the Obama campaign about precinct-based grassroots organizing, really wasn't doing it either, except in the state of Iowa. And it was as a result of that kind of organization that he won Iowa. And then you remember, New Hampshire was next, right? And all the polls said that he was well ahead of Hillary and was going to beat her. And she beat him. Because in point of fact, he had no precinct-based grassroots organization in New Hampshire, despite all the talk. And Hillary was one of the few states where Hillary out-organized him. And of course, then we came to Massachusetts, where she beat him by 15 percentage points. There wasn't the semblance of a grassroots organization. That was a huge wake-up call for Obama. And as a matter of fact, my dear wife, who had been with Obama from the beginning, had to listen to me every month saying, hey, have you gotten an email asking you to be a precinct captain? Because she had contributed to him. Have you gotten an email? Because one of the things about grassroots organizing, folks, is that once somebody sends you 50 or 100 bucks, first thing you want to do is say thank you, and the second thing you want to do is say, will you be a precinct captain? Or, Kitty Dukakis is already a precinct captain, will you be a block or neighborhood captain with her? That wasn't happening. And this went on for about, how many months? I don't know. Long time. Finally she said, why don't you call Axelrod? David Axelrod, you know, is his very close advisor and so on, is now in the White House, a very good guy. So I called David and I said, David, I said, I hear the talk, but it isn't happening. I don't see any semblance of a precinct-based grassroots organization. What's going on? Well, so I said, well, look, I don't want to bother you. I know I've been there, so on and so forth. Who's your field person? Who's running this operation? So he told me. I said, just tell him I'm going to call him. I called him 6 times. I never got a return phone call. Now, I wasn't personally offended. All I can tell you, folks, is if the head of field wasn't calling me back, that means he wasn't calling a lot of people back. And if you've got a field guy that doesn't call people back, you don't want him as your field guy. So I went back to Axelrod. Anyway, after New Hampshire, it was clear they had to do something about this. And in point of fact, they got the guy that had run the Iowa campaign to take over the field operation. And from that point on, organizing at the precinct level was a very, very important part of the Obama campaign. Now, they did not do it on a 50-state basis. And in my opinion, they should have. But they did it to a much greater extent than had ever been done before in a presidential campaign. And a lot of these so-called political consultant folks were very skeptical. You know, presidential campaigns. But if Barack Obama were here tonight, he'd tell you that the reason he won that campaign, in addition, I mean, lots of things. But without that grassroots operation, in lots and lots of states where Democrats hadn't even competed, you know, red states, blue states, that kind of stuff. Talk about self-fulfilling prophecies. It was that grassroots campaign that got him elected. Well, okay, he's now the president. This is not an easy world. Economy, healthcare, Afghanistan, lots of problems. The Obama operation itself has, in fact, decided that it is going to continue to maintain this grassroots operation. And they are doing so. You may not see them out there. But for example, Massachusetts has a full-time Obama coordinator who was one of their best organizers in Northeast Pennsylvania. He's now up here, went to BC. As a matter of fact, I guess he's a graduate student at BC these days, finishing up a social work degree, but he loves organizing. He discovered that he loved organizing in the course of the Obama campaign, and he's very good. Which sounds as if, and it's not just talk, that they're going to attempt not only to keep this grassroots operation together, but to utilize it to the extent you can when it comes to building support for the president's priorities. So a lot of these folks are deeply involved in grassroots and organizing for the health care thing and getting people to write and contact their members of Congress and so on and so forth. That's going on. And this is unprecedented. And it looks to me as if the Obama operation, as we start looking at 2011 and 2012, will make every effort not only to do the same thing they did in 2008, but to broaden it to include every state in the country, and my recommendation would be to them to do so. I mean, he lost West Virginia. I carried West Virginia by 12 points. No, and seriously, I mean, why? And again, there may be a few Republicans in the room, and I don't say this in a partisan sense, but why would Democrats ignore working-class, blue-collar West Virginia? Makes no sense at all. So my hope and expectation is that they will broaden this effort. One of my fellow Amtrak board members, one of the best Republicans I've ever worked with, who was a Republican mayor of Meridian, Mississippi, and was no fan of John McCain's because John McCain does not like trains. And John Robert Smith, the Republican mayor of Meridian, Mississippi, is passionate on the subject of the importance of a national rail passenger system in this country. And a wonderful guy, by the way, one of the best people I've ever worked with. And he kept calling me and saying, hey, you know, he's only down 5 points in Mississippi, but where's the organization? Because if we don't start seeing some evidence of an Obama organization, pretty soon people in Mississippi are going to say, well, he's not interested in us. And in point of fact, there was no organization in Mississippi, and Obama lost Mississippi by 9 percentage points. And I just don't see any reason why, at least my side, shouldn't contest every single one of these states. What concerns me, folks, is that too many members of my party, not to mention the other party, apparently were sleeping in 2008. Because I don't see any evidence that the lessons of the Obama campaign are carrying over to the campaigns of people that are running for governor or running for the United States Senate or the Congress in 2010. And because we happen to spend 3 months, difficult though it is in Southern California, in the wintertime, and I teach a course literally entitled California Policy Issues, which requires me to be as current as I possibly can be when it comes to California politics and policy and if you think we have a few problems in Massachusetts, let me tell you, it's kind of crazy out there. But in any event, and they are now warming up for a gubernatorial campaign to elect a successor to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, California only has 38 million people, the 6th or 7th largest economy in the world. And you would think that becoming governor of California would be a great prize, and it is. And until the mayor of San Francisco dropped out about 2 weeks ago, there were 2 serious candidates on the Democratic side and I think 3 on the Republican side. Not a single one of them apparently has the slightest intention of attempting to organize the 35,000 precincts in the state of California. Where were they last year? Were they sleeping? Is this kind of massive amnesia or what? One would think that every single political consultant in this country would be rewriting their playbooks and taking several pages out of the Obama Grassroots organization book. And it's not complicated, you know. It's a precinct captain and a half a dozen block or neighborhood captains in every single precinct you got. And by the way, any of you know how many precincts we have nationally? You get this right, you don't have to take the final. What? Anybody? 200,000. It's not 2 million, it's 200,000. There are 35,000 in California. There are 2,157 in Massachusetts. So we're not talking about a huge undertaking here. People say to me, well, we've got a daughter in San Francisco. She says, well, Dad, it's San Francisco. It's California. And I say, you know, 35,000 precincts. But there are 38 million people in California. And all you're looking for is 35,000 precinct captains. But there's not the slightest evidence. I thought Gavin Newsom, the mayor of San Francisco, might be the person in that race who would organize the grassroots. And by the way, folks, as we learn from our friend Obama, it's just not a question of organizing. Obama had 4 million contributors who contributed a total of $750 million to his campaign. Nobody's ever done that. Now, admittedly, the new technology helped, right? I mean, the internet is a wonderful tool, but you don't win on the internet. You organize on the internet. You raise money on the internet. The actual grassroots organization has to be people to people. So if you're a precinct captain, what do? Well, you pull together 6 or 7 block captains, and you folks go out and you begin systematically visiting personally every single voting household in your precinct. Not once, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. You get to know these folks. They get to know you. They may have questions, concerns. They may have issues of their own with governmental authority and ask you for help. But the whole point of this is to develop a really personal connection between the folks who are organizing and their constituents in these precincts. And you know, I don't know how many of you have ever done this, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. And it's a barrel of laughs. Kitty and I were block captains for Deval Patrick in 2006. And she had one part of our neighborhood and I had the other. And I must have gone out at least 4 times. And I pretty much saw personally everybody, in some cases 2 or 3 times. And we did pretty well in the precinct. But there was an apartment over on Netherlands Road, for those of you who know the geography of Brookline, where there were 2 young women registered. And they were never there until my 4th visit, the Sunday before the election, when magically the door opened. Now, I had left a little card saying, sorry, missed you, Mike Dukakis, I'll be back. Always got to do that. And the door opened, and I said, hi. I'm Mike Dukakis, the former governor. We live around the corner. I've come by 2 or 3 times. You may have gotten some of my messages, but I just wanted to drop by. I know you're registered as a Republican, but you know, we need a change. Deval Patrick's a good guy, and so on and so forth. She looked at me. About 30 seconds. She said, you're Dukakis? I said, yeah, you know, Kitty and I live around the corner. We've been here in the neighborhood for 40, 44, 45 years. Yeah, and I just want to come by, so I give him another pause for about a minute. You're really Dukakis? Anyway, she was getting a master's in computer science at Brown or something. I don't know, and had been, I think she was from Seattle or someplace, and whatever. I put her down as a 2, Jack. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, they're with you. 2, they're leaning in your direction. 3, they're leaning away. 4, they're with the other guy. Put her down as a 2. I think I got it, but I'm not sure. Anyway, but, you know, it's a lot of fun. And not only that, folks, what you find is that occasionally when you knock on the door, as Kitty did on the apartment of a young woman just down the street from us, she said, I'm so glad you came. I'm sick and tired of those phone calls. But I really am interested, and thanks to your visit, I think I want to get actively involved. And in point of fact, sent Kitty a terrific note a few days later, just saying thank you, you know, really appreciate the chance to chat with you, and so on and so forth. What this does is engage people and get them actively involved in the politics of their community, state, and country. But it doesn't happen in many cases unless somebody knocks on the door, has a conversation, develops a personal relationship. It really engages people. And to a very great extent, for the longest period of time, that has not been happening in the United States of America. What we've been doing is sitting on our cans, looking at those foolish attack ads, and then, if we can stand it, going down to the polls and voting for the lesser of two evils. That is not the kind of politics, in my judgment, that we ought to be practicing in this country. And my hope and expectation has been that Obama's success, you know, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, conservative, or liberal, but Obama's success would give people some sense of just how to do it in a way that not only can win elections, but engage lots and lots and lots of Americans in the politics of their country. And that's what's so concerning about me. Concerning about all of this to me. I'll tell you one other story. We have a daughter who lives in Denver. Been a broadcast journalist for many years with National Public Radio and now with Colorado Public Radio. She's got a couple of kids. But she works about 30 hours a week. She's married to a Republican, who's a wonderful guy, by the way, and did vote for Obama. I think mostly because, well, because his older child and son, Nico, whose birthday we'll be going to in a couple of weeks, came to the convention with us. You remember it was in Denver. Stood on a chair waving both a Greek and an American flag as Obama made his acceptance speech, and then said to his father, who, by the way, is now in the alternative energy business, and a big environmentalist, he said, why would you vote for McCain? I mean, he's against what you're doing. You know, Obama's the guy that's interested in alternative energy, not McCain. And he just badgered him and badgered him and badgered him. Anyway, John, and he's a good Republican, graduate of Amherst. But he and our daughter are best friends with a guy named Mike Bennett and his wife. And Mike Bennett's a guy that I knew when he was back as a young aide to Dick Celeste, who was the governor of Ohio and was dating one of my young staff people in my Washington office when I was governor. Moved out to Denver, was in the private sector, did very well financially, and then became the chief of staff to this terrific new mayor in Denver. He's a wonderful guy, and subsequently became the non-traditional superintendent of schools in Denver. And quickly developed a reputation for being one of the best superintendents in the country, and it was either he or Arnie Duncan who were going to be the next Secretary of Education. Much to his astonishment, at about 11 o'clock at night, the governor showed up after Ken Salazar, the incumbent senator, had been appointed Secretary of the Interior, and said, Bennett, I want to appoint you to the United States Senate. I guess he kind of choked a little bit and said, well, okay. And he's now a United States Senator, and he's running for election for the first time, has no political base, has never run for elective office. And it's all about fundraising. So I keep saying to my son-in-law, Jack, who is very strongly with his friend Bennett, don't tell me how much money you have. How many precinct captains have you got? Well, So every month he gets a call. How many precincts have you? Fact of the matter is that they're not doing any grassroots organizing. And now he has an opponent in the Democratic primary who used to be the Speaker of the Colorado House and is a very popular guy. No grassroots organization, folks. Even though his campaign manager ran Colorado for Obama. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, given what happened last year, why isn't Mike Bennett and every other serious candidate for major office adopting the Obama format? I don't know. People say to me, well, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard, but it's terrific. If you're a candidate and you have the ability to inspire lots of people to get working for you at the grassroots, there's nothing like it, folks. There's not just the interaction, the connections, the associations, watching young people in particular learn how to do this in the best possible way, and they themselves then beginning to get serious themselves about possibly running for office, working in public life. I mean, that's the fun of this. That's the joy that you get out of it if you happen to be in politics. So I'm concerned. I mean, I thought, maybe naively, that the Obama victory would be a signal to everybody in politics that there was a kind of new politics developing in the United States. And as I say this in a completely nonpartisan way. Republicans ought to be doing exactly the same thing. I don't see it happening. And I don't get it. I just don't get it. And Kitty's so tired of hearing me talk about this that she may or may not be awake. But, you know, you're not going to talk about the grassroots stuff again, are you? But really, I mean this. I mean this. This new technology is enormously helpful, as you can imagine, both from a fundraising standpoint and an organizing standpoint. You don't have to pay for literature anymore, folks. It's all in the machine. You can have 20 different pieces of literature. It doesn't cost you anything except the paper. You can be in touch with this growing organization on an instant's notice. Somebody starts firing negative ads at you, you can have them out in the street the next day, all thanks to the internet. And the fundraising possibilities, as we saw with Obama, are incredible. Not only that, he didn't take any lobbyist money, no PAC money, and he raised $750 million. I mean, he had so much money left over, he couldn't spend it. But the challenge here is not only to raise the money, but to make sure that those contributors are deeply and actively involved in the grassroots operation at the same time. And I don't care whether they contribute $100 or $25. I think the average contribution in the Obama campaign was something like $78. But what an incredible source of strength if you enlist these folks actively at the grassroots level. So here we are. Have we learned any lessons from 2008 in terms of organizing and campaigning? I don't know. I think the jury is out. But my hope is that we will, and it will see a different kind of approach to politics in this country, which doesn't mean the problems are going to go away, or the grassroots organization by itself is going to solve our healthcare problems or our global warming problems or our foreign policy problems, or for that matter, our economic problems. But I just hope that we've learned something from that campaign at whatever level one is operating, and that we will see lots and lots and lots of Americans, especially young Americans, getting deeply and actively involved in the politics of their time. You don't have that, folks, then I don't have to tell you who essentially makes the decisions, and not the folks that you and I would like to see making those decisions. So there we are, just a few random thoughts from a guy who loves Northeastern, enjoying teaching there, enjoying trying to inspire young people to go into public service and go into politics, but at the same time, with Kitty, deeply and actively engaged in lots and lots of things that we think are important, including, we hope, guaranteeing basic health security to all Americans. And if you want to talk about that in the Q&A, I'll be happy to do so. Anyway, let me stop at this point. Have you all eaten? Questions, thoughts, reactions?